I work as a functional medicine practitioner. I teach paleo lifestyle and certain areas within the functional medicine area. And I'm naturally honored to be here to share some of my knowledge and experience within this field at this beautiful event, combining nature and technology. And especially that combination, I found that very attractive. I guess biohacking is something that all of us in here, define somewhat differently. And biohacking for me is finding tools to reach my potential, to reach a solution for my life and finding out who I am. It's not for me finding tools to stand a stressed modern lifestyle. It's more going back to my origin and using chosen modern technology to make it easier. So I find that combination between nature and modern technology very, very attractive. Fasting is very, very far from modern technology, but it's there, right in front of you. A remarkable tool for optimizing health. And fasting is not for everybody. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Fasting has been used within religions and cultures for thousands of years in a way to reach purity, to connect to the one up there, if he is named God or Allah or any other name. And that is also the mental aspect of fasting. It's not very commercial. Expect when you do presentations and training programs about it, that I do. But they're not products that you can sell in the fasting area. So it's very pure, it's very clean, and it's there right in front of you. So I hope that I'm going to inspire you through this session, a little bit theoretically at the beginning, and then at the end, more practice. And first, a disclaimer. Fasting is not for everybody, especially not for people that are severe hormonally imbalanced or have different diseases. It could be revolutionizing at some diseases, but devastating at some others. So if you have been diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, or that is actually a better term, HPA axis dysfunction, that means that you've been stressed for a very, very long time and you've hit the wall, you might feel that fasting is not for you. You won't feel the benefits from it. If you have any other severe stress-related symptoms or, of course, eating disorders of any kind, at certain thyroid issues, but fasting is a revolutionizing tool against all metabolic diseases, inflammatory diseases, and to prevent cancer, and maybe also during a cancer treatment. Fasting is one of the areas of our lifestyle. It's not the whole thing. When I teach or do presentations, I usually use this schedule it's an attempt to show the paleo lifestyle's different aspects. To find optimal health, of course, you need to eat good foods. And you have to have nutrients. And nutrients come into your body through foods. But today, as we've heard before, we have so many vegetables that are monocropped and genetically modified. So we cannot today say that we optimize our nutritional status just through foods. We need a strategy to pick out certain foods to raise our nutritional status. We need a strategy to pick out the supplements that can increase our nutritional status. And then the next area is how we eat. And there we have fasting, our meal frequency. And our whole body, our hormonal system and our neurological system are designed for times when we have a lot of calories around us and times when they're scarce. We have stress hormones that easily can handle situations where we don't eat for a certain time, mobilizes all our energy and all our strategy built in our heads to handle that situations. And we have insulin and other hormones that deal with the calories when they arrive. So that flexibility, that is our whole biology. And today we have foods around for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a fridge at home that we go to once in a while. So foods are everywhere during 24 hours a day. So we need to schedule fasting periods in order to make our ordinary lives as original as possible, as our hunter-gatherers had. So that's the aim of different ways of fasting. The easiest way is basically just eat when you're hungry, don't eat when you're not hungry. But we're in a social context today where we work and we have family lives, so we have meals in the morning, at noon, at dinner time. So that schedule is more based on culture and social context than biology. Then we have stress and recovery. To find a balance between stress and recovery is essential for optimal health. Sleep patterns, finding a meaning with life, having the right attitude. When I wrote my last book, when I published it, I made withdrawals from interviews from really old people around the world that had kept their health up to a high age. Among them, there are women that get 116, 117 years old. And when you ask them what is the recipe for a long and healthy life, no one has eaten perfectly. No one has exercised perfectly. But the common thing is that they have a positive way of looking on life, and they are in a social context. They talk to people, they socialize. They are not alone. So that is also crucial for health and longevity. Movement, of course, we know that hunter-gatherers, if you travel around the world today to visit hunter-gatherers, they're between 15 and 30,000 steps a day. And the ones in here that when you have been counting your steps, you know that, well, a lazy day it's 2,000-3,000 maybe. And it takes an effort to reach 10,000. That's the goal formed from our authorities. But 15 to 30,000, it's never going to happen if you don't do anything extreme on that particular day. Endurance and then functional strength. So if you all in here try to embrace all these 9 areas as much as possible in your ordinary life, if you're trying to develop yourself and taking your life to next level in each of these 9 areas, health results will come. So fasting is one of them, but it's not everything. Fasting is calorie restriction, and it's time-restricted feeding. They go into each other, those two terms, they overlap. But an example, time-restricted feeding, I could use less hours a day for my meals, let's say 8 hours. So let's say I take my meals from noon to evening during 8 hours, 12 to 8 p.m. I don't consciously try to lower my calorie intake when I eat. But that's gonna be a consequence in practice because I skip the breakfast. But I don't do it consciously. So it is a time-restricted feeding, and it is a calorie restriction. But when you're eating your meals, you don't try to lower the calories deliberately. So fasting could be divided into two areas. Intermittent fasting, that could easily be implemented in all our lifestyle. And I'm going to mention therapeutic fasting, using fasting as a therapy tool for healing effects. And that is more than 48 hours. That is what I'm going to show you a little bit later, 2 to 5 days or even longer. I actually had a client of mine that had been on a fasting period for 10 days, just water for 10 days. That's not easy. That's not going to be implemented in your lifestyle regularly. You can do it as an experiment. And it's on the border to a little bit crazy, but it has really, really beneficial effects. The experience of fasting is highly individual. A few of you will notice that you benefit very well from it. You see that the waste becomes less. You feel you have a mental clarity, and you're really good off with it. Others will notice that the experience is not positive. You get tired. You don't have any strength to do anything. Your movement will go down, and your mood will go down. So the experience of fasting is highly individual. And that is due to our individuality, different hormonal imbalances, balances, but also due to genetics. So we're starting off with intermittent fasting. And the two varieties that I usually recommend is something called 16-8 and a 24-hour fast. A 16-8 is pretty easy to implement in your daily lifestyle. It's taking meals during 8 hours of the day and be in a fasting state during 16 hours. So when you go to sleep and you sleep 8 hours, you're normally using those 8 hours for the 16, and then you have to add another 8 hours, and you could add 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed, and the rest when you wake up. So basically, you start with a meal at noon and skip breakfast, and then you eat your meals during 8 hours until, let's say, 7 or 8 p.m. A 24-hour fasting period is pretty easy. It's from dinner to dinner. And what do you achieve with fasting? Well, you improve your metabolic pattern pretty dramatically. You lower your blood sugar, your HbA1c, the long-term blood sugar, could over time decrease. You improve your blood profile. HDL rises. Bad LDL goes down. Blood pressure go down. So it's a revolutionizing tool against the metabolic syndrome that actually kills 50% of people in the modern Western world. So we have it here, right in front of us. Weight loss, of course. You can use it for fitness purpose. If you're just trying to lose the last couple of kilos, a 16-8 fast would be perfect. You can do it once, twice, 3 times a week. You can do it the whole week. You can do it during a period of time. But you can also do it regularly, every day. So there's basically no limit. A 24-hour fasting is a little the next level of it, the next speed that you can put on top of a 16-8 fasting. You also decrease inflammation. And when you're not supplying your gut with foods, you're not activating your inflammatory system to react on the foods that come into your body. So when you extend the period of time when you do not supply calories to your body, you will decrease inflammation. So therapeutic fasting, if we take it to the next level, it's the additional effects that you get is detoxification, you have epigenetic programming, and you put your cells in something called cell repair. You do that also in the other forms of fasting, but this is more direct and more obvious. And you can calibrate the immune system and fine-tune the immune system. During the 90s, there were a couple of studies looking at people with arthritis. And you saw that fasting for 5 to 10 days actually leads to a less amount of white blood cells. So what the body does when you don't supply calories is using different tissues to form energy. And also white blood cells, they are broken down and probably used as energy. It sounds a little bit negative, but when you have an inflammatory disease where the immune system is a little bit out of order, that could start the immune system over again. It could restart it. So they're broken down and built up again. The symptoms came back when they started eating foods again. But during the fasting period, a lot of these patients with arthritis, they experienced less symptoms. So it has the potential to really calibrate the immune system. So less pro-inflammatory molecules are produced, more anti-inflammatory molecules are produced. You put the cells in a repair mode, which means that they can excrete all bad fatty acids in their cell membranes. So they can refresh their contents in their cell membranes. And the cells will produce more antioxidants and build up their protection against inflammation and oxidative stress. So my last experiment with therapeutic fasting was a 3-day fast last Christmas. And I'm going to take you through it. The lines put in green, I can recommend. The ones put in red, I will not recommend. So I did a 3 days fast, followed by a 10K run. And I had water, I had some bone broth, and I added salt to my body during these 3 days. And then I took a 10K run. What happens during these 3 days, besides from what I've gone through, is that you're depleting your glycogen stores. All stored carbohydrates disappear from the body, so you have nothing. So when you take a 10K run, you're really into the fat burning mode. You really teach your body how to use fatty acids as fuel. So it was pretty easy to run 10K. I could go 20K or 30K. But I reached to a certain pace where I couldn't take it further. When I tried to run faster, when I tried to get into a pace where I would have to have glycogen in my body, it was stop. It was nothing there at all. So you become what we've also heard before during this day, that you can easily burn fatty acids on the lower intensities. But when you go further, there's no fuel. But what you do during this 10Ks, you put an enormous stress on the mitochondria where energy is produced. So you're really learning, you're teaching your body to produce and use fatty acids really, really effectively. So that could be a regimen also for sportsmen to do that once in a while. It never boosts performance at that time, but during a training regimen, it could be a part of teaching the body to use fatty acids as a fuel. I did this between the 20th and 23rd of December, which is not to recommend. I was at home. My family were preparing for Christmas. There was cinnamon all over the place in the air, and that's suicidal to be in that environment. So I do not recommend that. If you're going to try a longer fasting period, be aware of the environment you're in. You may want to go out to the nature, be close to nature. You may want to take hikes. You don't want to have a fridge next by. And you may want to do it with others that also do the fasting. So you have to create an environment that increases motivation and makes it easier. You could try bone broth. I took bone broth just to get some taste on my tongue. The most boring thing during 3 days without food is that you don't feel any taste at all. That is really, really hard. I didn't expect that. So a little bit of taste. If you want to keep up your muscle mass during these 3 days, you could actually do a little semi-fasting solution. You could add 30 grams of whey or like 7-8 grams of branched chain amino acids every 3 hours, and you could go on with heavy strength lifting during these 3 days. That's a way of preventing muscle mass breakdown, which will occur during this longer time of fasting. So practical recommendations for health and long-lasting performance is implement a 16/8 in rotation, maybe not 365 days a year, but from time to time. Try a 24-hour fast once or twice a month. And if you experiment with therapeutic fasting 2 to 5 days, once or twice a year, that is gonna be very, very efficient for your optimal health. Finally, before you try that, come off sugar, caffeine, and alcohol cravings at least 7 days before start. Go on a low-carb diet, and together with a 2-hour walk or 1-hour run each day, preferably not at home, together with other people, and some bone broth, some taste of any kind, water, and salt. Good luck.